All right. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning from wherever you are. My name is Nelson Garissa. I'm, I'm the facilitator of this webinars, and I mostly reached out to you in some form on WhatsApp, on email. But I just want to welcome you again to this session today. We had one on Tuesday, and we're having another one today, where we will cover risk management, stakeholder engagement, and quality. And this is in our just to understand more about project delivery and the components in this section. Our host today, our trainer today is Paul. Paul is a certified trainer who's going to take us through the content today. He will go through the content. You can drop questions on the chat, but we'll have a moment where you'll be able to ask questions as well. I believe he's also prepared a few questions which you'll be able to answer. If you'd like to ask a question live, you can just raise your hand and we'll be able to answer the question. I'll probably be able to answer a question. One thing that I want to mention before we can proceed is that the exam is changing in July. If you haven't booked for your exam, this is me encouraging you to schedule for your exam and work towards getting certified for that day before the exam changes. I did post in the WhatsApp group before what sections of exams are changing. So we want to ensure that the curriculum the exam content that you practiced for is what you're going to sit for. So if you're sitting for the exam between now and July, you're going to still do the exam with the current exam content outline. However, if you sit for the exam after July, you will do the new exam. This is why we're encouraging you to book for your exam. Yeah, there's a question on the pilot exam. This totally depends on you. It's a personal decision if you're confident enough, because there's new content that has been added on sustainability and AI. If you're up to it, go ahead and do it. Otherwise, if not, you can just do the exam that is there now and then take the certifications on the other certifications on sustainability and AI that PMI provides. You still get the same knowledge. So, okay. Only those that have opted in for the pilot are going to do the new exam. Everyone else is still doing the current exam. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to mention, if you have any questions, like I said before, please post on the chat. This session is going to be recorded, actually being recorded, and we will share the recording tomorrow on the WhatsApp group as well, and alongside next week's sessions that will be on Tuesday and Thursday. We encourage you to interact, post your questions on the chat on WhatsApp, and be able to other candidates will be able to answer. I will pass it on to Paul now so that you can take it over and go through the content for today. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nelson. Hi, everyone. My name is Paul Chiporombe. I'm a Zimbabwean, but I currently work in Somalia, Mogadishu. So today I will be taking us through three main topics that I've prepared. I've got risk, quality, and I also have stakeholders. I see that on Tuesday, stakeholders were a little bit covered, so I'm going to still cover them, but it will be a little bit on a lighter mode. So as we get into the activity for today, I think I'll just start with an activity so that everyone can be engaged. So let me just share my screen. And if you see my screen, you just put a thumbs up on the Teams, and then I will know that you can see. So I've got this activity that I prepared. I've got three scenarios here. So I need us to first start by being able to identify risk and understand what risk is. And I need to know what you know so that at least I can know how to teach it a little bit deeper. So the first scenario is a competitor exits the market giving a new product. So I wanted to know if anyone understands if this is on scenario one, if this is a risk or it's not a risk. You can post on the messages and then I can see. I can see someone is saying this is a risk. Someone for scenario one, they're saying it's not a risk. Someone said it's an opportunity. Is there anyone else with a different view? Okay. Okay, which is good. So now as we start the topic of risk, risk is anything that can. Is there anyone who said something? Okay, so risks are either positive. We've got positive risks and we have got negative risks. So the business risks that we have, we have got opportunities, and we also have threats. They are actually code risks as well. So looking at scenario one, it's actually a risk, but it is a positive risk, which is a business risk and an opportunity. Then let's look at scenario two. Your best developer resigns today. Let's say you have been running an agile project or anything, and then your best developer um, resigns. Is it a risk or it's not? I can see Praveen is saying it's a negative risk. Everyone is saying it's a risk. Is there anyone else who would want to, or anyone who would like to speak? It's still okay on this stage. All right, it's okay. So for scenario two, I would say this has happened already. So a risk is something that might happen. So if it has already happened, then we no longer call it a risk. We now call it an issue. We now call it an issue. So for scenario two, it's not a risk. It's actually an issue because the developer has already resigned it's no longer a risk. Then for scenario three, you're managing a new online payment platform, and then you hear that a new regulation might be introduced. It could make your system illegal. Redesigning now costs time and money. Ignoring it could destroy the product. No one knows if or when it will happen. You are the project manager. What would you do in this case? There's someone who is still saying scenario two is a risk. Um, will they be anyone able to? Okay. I say scenario two is an issue because it has already happened. The risk was the developer might resign. So given that he has resigned already, so it's now an issue. And for scenario three, what we're looking at is usually, oh yeah, there's someone who is saying plan for the risk, which is what I was looking for. Correct risks for future potential event. Okay. Conduct a risk assessment. Okay. All right. So which is good. So I would say what usually happens in risk is number one, in this case, we need to understand what might happen. So which is mainly identifying the risk. Then number two, we need to do an assessment of how bad or likely it is. So that's mainly analysis. Then number three, deciding what to do about it. Then that's planning responses. And then number four, actually doing it, which is implementing the resources, then keeping an eye on it, which is to monitor. So after this, let's just move into our details on risk. Let me just share the slide for risk. Then I can explain everything that I was saying. And then if anyone has got a question, you can be dropping it here on the session, then I'll try to answer. Or some of the peers can also answer you so that it's faster. Okay. I hope everyone can see my slide now. So, I mean, as we know, as we are managing a project, what we need to know is things can go wrong or things can go better, depending with the project. And as we're doing projects, we need to manage that because anything can happen. Like, for example, if I'm going to town, I can get hit by a car. That's a risk. My car can be involved in an accident. That's a risk. If we're playing football, Lionel Messi can be injured. That's a risk. All these things. So usually when you're doing a project, we need to know that anything can happen. So rather than being reactive, we really need to be prepared with strategy, a toolkit for possible responses, and a growth mindset to be proactive about the risk planning. So this is mainly the reason for this. So risk assessment, it often starts early in the project, including the review of risks that were identified. So before we do the project, there is business document like the business case. We identify some risks there. And then we also have the project charter. It identifies some of the risks. So we need to start planning early. But then we need to keep in mind that risk to the project can pop up from anywhere and it can happen anytime. So risks, these are conditions of uncertainty that might occur. And if so, they might have a variety of impacts on the project. You sometimes get a warning that a risk is about to occur. And when you get a warning, that is what we call the trigger condition. So it's a condition that happens before the risk occurs. So when it happens, then we need to take action. And then another way to consider different types of risks. So we've got pure risks, which is only the opportunity for loss. That's a pure risk. Then we also have business risk, like the one that we had an example for, which is a competitor just left the market. So it will be an opportunity, which is a business risk. And then we can also have losses in a company. Then an issue is it's a risk that has happened. Even though issues, it's not only from risks, but there's got other things that can cause issues. But when a risk occurs, it is actually an issue. Then some of the examples for project risks, we can say working with new vendors and building processes, supply chain issues to correct breaks. These are some of the issues that you can get. These are some of the risks that you can get as you are managing a project. So these things can derail the project, the outcomes of the project at any time. So we need to manage them and be very proactive rather than reactive. So some of the business risks, as we said, they are mainly opportunities for gain or loss. So we need to consider the likelihood for risk event will occur and the potential impact of that risk on the project, like how badly is it going to damage the project, um, and weigh the risk opportunity with the threats. So can you derive value from the organization? So some of the approaches for risk within life cycles, for example, in predictive approaches, risk is managed and minimized. Opportunities are considered but managed through careful process. So that is not to really say that adaptive projects are careless about risk. On the contrary, the nature of the life cycle with shorter periods of feedback from the customer can often mitigate instances of high risk. So what happens, let's say the difference between the two, let's say we're doing sorry, a predictive. We want to minimize or we plan in advance. And then So the time risk is likely going to affect us. But then if we're doing adaptive, we look at a risk and then we can do some sprints or iterations that we can do to manage that risk in advance before it before it affects the project. Then the project professionals need to understand the risk appetites. So as you're doing your project, you need to understand the risk appetites of the key stakeholders that you have, and for the organization. So some of the organizations, they are risk seeking, some they are risk neutral, some they are risk averse. But you need to know the risk threshold for the organization that you're doing a project for. So individual project risk can affect one or more project objectives in the negative or positive way. So overall, project risk is the effect of uncertainty on the project arising from all sources of uncertainty, including individual risk representing the exposure of stakeholders to the implications of variations in project outcomes, both positive and negative. And then now, so remember when we're doing those steps, the first highlight that I said was you need to understand risk. Then you identify, you need to identify risks and then perform qualitative analysis. So right now we are still, someone is saying they cannot see. Can you all see my screen? Okay, all right, so that's good. So let's look at the definition of a risk management plan, which is usually when you see something management plan, it's mainly the how to document. It's one of the things that PMI makes easy to understand. So every time you look and then you see risk management plan, communication management plan, stakeholder management plan, it's mainly the how to document, like how to manage risk, how to manage communication, how to manage stakeholders. But then let's look at the book definition. So risk management plan is a common component of the project, program, or portfolio management plan that describes how risk management activities will be structured and performed. So in the plan, you see things like risk strategy, the methodologies, roles and responsibilities, the funding timing, etc. These are some of the things that you see in the risk management plan. Then we have got this, sorry, we have got the Stacy diagram here. So what happens is you look at the technology that you know and the requirements that you know, let's say, of the project that you're doing. And then if you know the technology that you're going to use and you are certain of the requirements, then in this case, you're going to use the predictive planning. But then if you're not sure, or you're somewhere in the middle, like the requirements are somewhere in the middle, then you're going to use adaptive. As well as complex, you're going to use adaptive. But when it's chaos, it's usually a place where you need to take action to make sure that you move that from just chaos to maybe to complex and then complicated, and then you start your project. Because if you don't know the requirements and the certainty, then the risk is very high. You cannot continue. It will be tricky to continue with that project. So at least you need to know something, and then you can continue with the project. Okay. So now I think we have got the ways that we can identify. We've got ways that we can identify risk. Let me go back somewhere here. I want to define this. Someone was asking about risk threshold. So as I stated, the risk appetite was the degree of uncertainty an organization or individual is willing to accept in anticipation of a reward. But then a risk threshold, the level of risk exposure above which risks are addressed or below which risks may be accepted. So we're saying if the risk is more than a certain number. For example, if we say, if you've got more than 3 damaged goods in the production line, then that's our threshold. We need to take action. So it's mainly the level of risk exposure that we need to take action. That if we pass that, then we need to take action. So if it's too high, then we need to take some action. I hope you are answered, Christella. So I'm going to define some of the terms here. We've got the risk breakdown structure, brainstorming, which is mainly some people just sitting and brainstorming actually and talking about ideas and everything. Nominal group training techniques, SWOT analysis, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We've got affinity diagrams. So these are all ways that we can use to identify risk. Then you can use a prompt list, which is mainly it's basically ask about the risk, or basically categories of risk. For example, we can say technical risks, legal risk, environmental, financial, operational, political, social, stakeholders, procurement. These are some of the prompt lists. So what we'll do is we sit with people and then we say, let's look at technical risks. What technical risks can we face? And then we write our technical risks. Then we go to the next one. What financial risks can we face? And then we write our financial risks. We go to the next one, political risks. So the categories will be the prompt list to help us brainstorm and come up with the risks that can happen per each category. Then let's look at the risk breakdown structure. So it is mainly the hierarchical representation of what's this of the sources of risk. Okay, then affinity diagrams, a technique that allows large numbers of ideas to be classified into groups for review and analysis. Then so it's mainly like we sit and then we say we start grouping our risks into groups. Like we say, this risk is going to affect this, then we put it in a group. This risk is going to affect is under this category, we put it in that group. So it's mainly classification of some risks, like into certain groups. Then we've got the Delphi technique. It is a form of gathering expert opportunities in which members of a group are asked or polled anonymously. Then for the prompt list, I think I've already explained it, but it's just a checklist of specific categories of risk. This tool is a simple series of broad risks, for example, environmental or legal rather than specific risks. So like I've even explained more of some of the categories that we can have under affinity diagrams and prompt list. Then so this is an example of a risk breakdown structure. So if you see like the risk breakdown structure level 1, we have got these ones. So for example, let's say we set, then we prompt the list to say technical risk. Then we look at the technical risks. We put them in the level 2. We go to the management risk. We put them there. We go to the commercial risk. We put them by themselves. We go to financial risks. We put them. So then at the end of the day, we have got the risk breakdown structure that we're going to use to manage our risk. Then, so now, you remember when we said we have got the risk steps that we were putting. So we started with identify, perform, plan risk management. Then now you have identified the risks. You've put them on the risk breakdown structure. And then so now what we need now is to perform a qualitative assessment where we are going to be ranking risk. So qualitative assessment and quantitative assessment, they come after you have identified the risk and they're there on the risk breakdown structure. But where is the difference? Quantitative assessment is usually it's optional. It's not like required on every project. And then qualitative risk is something that you need to do because you need to rate your risk. You need to know how the probability of your risk. You need to understand the impact of your risk. How much is it going to affect your project? So then the other distinction between the two is qualitative risk analysis is relative, subjective, and categorical. So you're just putting your risks in categories. Then quantitative is absolute, objective, and statistical. So you're going to be using statistics to understand your risk. So I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, we say PMI is going to, when you write your PMP, you're going to be graded. You're going to be given your grades. You're either going to be target or above target. Maybe I hope there's no one who will be below target or anywhere because we don't want anyone to fail. So let's say you're going to be target or above target. So that's qualitative. That's a qualitative mark. It's not a quantitative mark. But then if you go to write another different, if you go to write another different certification, they will say maybe you've got 62%. That's a quantitative assessment. So the same thing happens when we're talking of risk. And in this case, we're going to look at some of the definitions that you can use for qualitative assessment. So you can use scale, probability, time, cost, or quality. So for example, you can say, there's someone who is asking qualitative. Okay, so as I have said, qualitative, it's mainly you're asking which risk matters most. Let me put it that way. You're just looking at which risk matters most, which risk is above the other. So you can say this risk is high, okay? It's very high. This risk is low. This risk is it's not an issue. And then you look at time, like how long is it going to affect the project? You look at the cost, quality, etc. Then okay, someone is saying words and numbers. Yeah, you see the numbers that are on here, it's mainly numbers that we use to categorize our risk. So if we say, for example, that this risk is greater than 6 months, like if it happens, we're going to be delayed maybe by more than 6 months. We haven't calculated anything. It's just a ranking to say risks that are more than 6 months are higher than risks that are less than 6 months, you know. Or if you say it's going to be greater than 5 million, we are just ranking the risks, but we haven't calculated anything, you know. So sometimes it's a little bit confusing, but qualitative is just mainly about finding the risks that are about ranking the risks. But then when it comes to quantitative, it's mainly about measurement and not ranking. How much will this risk affect us? So, like the example that I gave to say, Lionel, look, I'm now going to Lionel Messi. Well, let's go to him. Let's say, for example, um, he's he's injured. Can people hear me? Someone is saying that they cannot hear me.
Yep, I can hear you. Most
You can hear
getting
me.
thumbs up. Yeah.
All right, that's good. So I was just saying, let's say Lionel Messi is injured. We'll say the probability of him being injured is greater than the probability of us losing will be greater than 70%. That's a qualitative risk assessment. But then if we go now to quantitative now, we are saying, okay, the probability of us losing, yes, it's 70%, but the impact is, we now look at the, what's this, at the match that we're doing and the money that we're going to get. Let's say it's $1 million. So we're going to say $1 million, which is the impact multiplied by the 70%. So the quantitative now is going to say the injury of Lionel Messi will cost us 700,000, you know. So yeah, but anyway, we'll get to the quantitative, and then you'll get a clearer view. Then after that, we've got the probability and impact matrix. So as you know, the matrix is just like some Excel, some boxes. So we're going to take our risks, and then we're going to put them depending on the ranking that we have done using qualitative assessment. So then if it's low, then everything, we're going to plan our risk response based on that. If it's high, we're also going to plan our risk response based on that. So this is mainly the way that we deal with this. But still, this, even though you see numbers here, it's still not quantitative evaluation. Then we've got the risk register. When it comes to predictive, the risks needs to have an owner. So we have got the impact level, everything. And then we've got the trigger condition, which someone asked, but so what it is mainly we're saying if it happens, then the risk is likely about to happen. So we need to have an action. So that's where now we're going to have a planned response and the person who is going to be responsible for that action. And then but this is not comprehensive. We also have other things that we can put, like additional things, maybe depending with the PMO of your organization. So now the risk register, according to the definition, it's a repository in which outputs of risk management processes are recorded as a central planning document for project risk analysis and control. The risk register contains a list of most important risks to the project's completion. For each risk, it identifies the likelihood of occurrence, the impact to the project, the priority, and the applicable risk plan. Okay. So we also have the risk list. The risk list is usually it's a little bit higher level as compared to the risk register. It's higher level, and it's mainly used in adaptive. So once we have it, then we can we can run. We might not put everything. We can just put something simple like this. And when it comes to ownership, which is mainly one of the differences, you see that in Agile, we have our risk list, and the moment that we identify risk, instead of just having a trigger condition, we might actually run like a spike and find the solution to that risk immediately. And the whole team was actually responsible for that. So when it comes to ownership, instead of just one person, it might actually be the whole team sometimes. Now let's go to the quantitative. Now, the quantitative analysis, it's a little bit different from the qualitative. The qualitative was just measuring, the qualitative was just ranking our risks. Which risk is the most important? Which risk is higher than the other one? Which risk is less? Which risk needs less attention, etc. But then now, when it comes to quantitative, we're looking at things like simulations, Monte Carlo simulation. There's one simulation that was on Microsoft Excel. It was an add-in. So what it does is it calculates all possibilities that might happen on that risk, and then it gives you a statistical figure, on that risk to say maybe it will delay or maybe it will cost you this much. Then we also have expected monetary value, which is like the example that I gave, where you multiply the probability, multiplied by the impact. Then now we also have sensitivity analysis. Now on sensitivity analysis, we look at the risks, like in the risk register, and then we're going to say, if we remove this on this risk, how sensitive is it? So we're going to rank our risks by sensitivity. And then the risks on the top will be the ones that are sensitive the most. So sensitivity analysis here, it's only a correlation with project duration. So in this case, we are saying like the activity one or the first risk, it will affect maybe by about 0.4 something. But it's not only the duration, it could be how sensitive is it to cost, you know. So we can put our tornado diagram looking at the cost. So when we put it looking at the cost, we know that if this risk happens, then it's going to affect our cost the most, up to the last one at the bottom. And let's just look at some of the definitions. So a simulation is mainly an analytical technique that models the combined effect of uncertainty to evaluate their potential impact on objectives. Then Monte Carlo simulation, like the one I was giving an example, a risk management technique which project managers use to estimate the impact of various risks on the project cost and project timeline. Using this method, one can easily find out what will happen if the project schedule or cost in case any risk occurs. It is used at various times during the project life cycle to get the idea on the range of probable outcomes during various scenarios. Then for the sensitivity analysis, an analysis technique to determine which individual project risk or other sources of uncertainty have the most potential impact on project outcomes by correlating variations in project outcomes with variations in elements of a quantitative risk analysis model. So the person that does something when the risk happens. Okay. So yeah. Then we also have the decision trees. So yeah, then we have got influence diagrams, expected monetary value, which is the one that we explained already, which is mainly the probability multiplied by the impact. So now the decision tree analysis, it's a diagramming and a calculative technique for evaluating the implications of a chain of multiple options in the presence of uncertainty. Influence diagram used in quality management decisions, a graphical representation of situation showing causal influences, time ordered in events and other relationships among variables and outcomes. Then expected monetary value, the one that we have explained already. So before we move to the risk responses, let's put together some of the information. Like in this case, in the chat, I want you to write if you agree to this question. Predictive projects are most often affected by the impact of cost-related risks, whereas adaptive projects are affected by the impact of time-related risks. You can write in the comment section what you think. If you want to say something, you can raise a hand. And then the second question is, do you think each of these typical risks is more typical of predictive or adaptive project? Can you explain why? Okay, I see some people are agreeing here. Is there anyone who would like to explain why they agree? Some people, they don't agree, some they don't agree. So maybe just to be on the clear, maybe anyone can explain. Is there anyone who is raising their hand? Complete the project is very uncertain. Okay. Okay, someone doesn't agree. So what I can say is predictive projects are most often affected by the impact of cost-related risks, whereas adaptive projects are affected by the impact of time-related risks.
We have a hand raised. I'm not sure if you want to take that.
Yeah, they can talk.
Okay. I've allowed your mic. You can go ahead. I'm not sure what your name is. It's just numbers. Would you like to ask a question? All right, I think we can continue.
We can continue. All right. So the best answer that I can give is I agree to this. Predictive locks scope early. So, like when we start in predictive, we lock our scope early. So changes mainly drive costs overruns, whilst adaptive projects, they fix time boxes. So uncertainty mainly shows up as time pressure. So, for example, a Scrum team discovers a feature is more complex than expected. Chances are that they don't hire 5 new developers immediately. They push items to later sprints, which is mainly like a time impact. Then for this one, do you think each of these typical risks is more typical of predictive or adaptive projects? So delivery date stamps, what do you think? Delivery predictive, okay. What about stretched resources? Lack of clarity and scope creep. So I'm just going to give just a quick one so that we can catch our time. I would say the delivery date stamps, it's mainly predictive. Like one delay it ripples through the entire plan. So, for example, if we do a foundation late or a delay on a foundation, it's going to affect the whole building. Then when we go to stretch resources, I would say adaptive because teams work in short cycles with changing priorities, often using same people across agent iterations. So sometimes the same people they are used in different iterations as well. So lack of clarity, adaptive, because requirements are expected to evolve as learning happens, especially in adaptive. Then we've got scope creep. It's definitely predictive. Scope is meant to be fixed. So any change directly it increases the cost and schedule. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So when it comes to risk responses, um, one of the this is one of the project management principles, which is mainly to optimize risk responses. And this means that we continuously evaluate exposure to risk. So like it's every time during the whole project, we're actually evaluating. So both opportunities and threats. So we maximize the positive impacts and minimize negative impacts to the risk and its outcomes. So these are some of the responses that we can do, which is mainly appropriate for the significant cost effective. We need to make sure we do it at the best possible cost, realistic with the project context, um, agreed to by relevant stakeholders, etc. And then it is owned by a responsible person. Like the way that we say that once the trigger condition happens, we also have a responsible person that is going to make sure that the risk is well mitigated in advance. Then we also need to plan the risk responses. And we have got this thing. So when a trigger condition signals a risk can develop. So when the trigger happens, then we know that the risk is just about to happen and we need to take action. And we have got the secondary risk, residual risk, contingency, and the contingency reserve. So the secondary risk, mainly the risk that happens, it can arise as a direct result of the risk response implementation. So once we do the implementation of the risk, something else can happen, which is totally not related to, to that risk, but it's another risk that can happen because we have implemented the risk response. Then the residual risk is the risk that remains after we have done the risk response. So it's aligned to the risk that we're actually responding to. Then we have got the fallback plan. I mean, something that we can do if the primary risk response fails. Then the contingency reserve, as you know, our cost baseline, we have got the contingency reserve, which is mainly the amount that is, or the allowance that we set aside for the known risks. Then we have got the management reserve, which is not a part of the cost baseline, but it's set aside by the management for the unknown risks. So here we're talking about contingency reserve, which is within the project manager's control. So now some of the responses that we can do are here. So we can escalate, avoid, etc. if it's a threat. If it's an opportunity, we can also do some responses as well. So on this one, just to save our time, I think I'm going to go to just a few questions on risk. As I have said, I'm going to focus more on risk and quality, then we'll move on to the shareholders, which we're going to do just a little bit. Okay. Sorry, I need to show. Okay, now it's good. Okay, now let's look at the sample question. Your Scrum team is unsure whether a new technology can meet strict performance and compliance requirements. Implementation is without validation. Implementing it without validation may cause major rework. What should the team do? Someone is saying B, 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 A. We've got a lot of Bs. Anyone who would like to explain the B? Someone has said A. Would you like to explain why?
Just feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute you.
Yeah.
We have Duncan.
So,
I have
Duncan Ross. Yeah, you can go ahead.
your mic should be open now. You should be able to unmute.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would think A is not really applicable because it's not really a feature. But you definitely, it's a really important thing to be able to be compliant. So question C is just deflecting. It's not really the right solution. Neither is D. So the only one that really makes sense is B, to reduce the uncertainty, to figure out what you're going to do about the fact that you need to comply. That's my view. I might be wrong.
Okay, that's good.
Cool. What do you think?
So
Are we on the right track or not?
You are actually on the right track. You have basically used a good elimination tactic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, as you know, a spike is mainly used to reduce uncertainty, as we have said that if it's an adaptive risk, we do like a time boxed iteration, which is mainly a spike that the team is going to be looking at that risk, trying to understand that risk and reduce all the uncertainties. They could either be technical spike or even functional spike. But in this case, we're looking at it's like a technical spike where we're going to be reducing uncertainties of the risk, which makes B our answer. So I'm going to go here. So lesson A, we have got a spike is used to reduce uncertainty and technical risk through research testing or experimentation before committing to a solution. So why the others are wrong? I would say A, it punishes PMP really, it punishes blind execution under uncertainty. So if you add a feature before you understand the risk, then you will be punished in the exam. It means the PMI will not be happy. The team should first gather data, or definitely before you do anything, before you talk to the sponsor, usually don't give your work away. So before you talk to the sponsor, he has already employed you for dealing with such things, and you don't just go to the sponsor with no solution. You do not reject ideas before understanding them. Okay, so let's just look at the other question, which is the question 2. You're managing a project involving a new medical AI system. Several senior experts strongly disagree about the likelihood of regulatory approval. Some of them are politically influenced and tend to dominate meetings. What is the best technique to estimate the probability of this risk? I see people are saying C. Okay. Anyone would like to say anything before I go to the next one? There's a lot of, some are saying B, nominal group technique.
Yep. Feel free to just raise your hand if you'd like to say something.
Okay, so I'm just going to move forward. Like a Delphi technique, it is basically the most appropriate. Okay. Um, Sarah, Zakaria, you can go ahead.
Oh, there is no one. I think they dropped their hand, so you can just go ahead.
Okay. So I was saying like a Delphi technique, it is the most appropriate method for estimating probability of the risk in this situation. Like it is a structured communication technique that uses anonymous, okay, iterative input from a panel of experts to reach a consensus. So by ensuring anonymity, this method can counteract the influence of political. You see here we had put the political influence. So if you use a Delphi technique, it will actually counteract that the influence of political powerful stakeholders who might dominate the discussions. So it also provides a neutral platform for experts to contribute their opinions, making the final estimate for more objective and reliable. But so why are the other, let's look at why the other options are not good. So it uses anonymous, multi-round expert input, which prevents dominance, politics, and group thinking. exactly the problem described, which is really what we have described here. So brainstorming is open, not anonymous. Dominant voices will still influence. Nominal group still involves visible participation. Affinity diagrams organizes ideas. It does not estimate probability. That's the only issue with the affinity diagram. In this case, we wanted to estimate the probability. Then question 3. You're managing a project that has identified over 50 potential risks. You need to quickly identify which risks require immediate attention and which can be monitored with minimal effort. What is the best next step? We've got A, perform quantitative risk analysis using Monte Carlo simulation. B, prioritize the risk based on probability and matrix. C, develop detailed contingency plan for all identified risks. D, assign risk owners to each risk. I see some A's here. Anyone who would like to say something before I dive to the next question? Yeah, I think there's some C's, some A's. Okay. I think it really boils out to the definition that we're putting on the quantitative and the qualitative analysis. As I was saying, that the qualitative, it's mainly about risk prioritization. So we're just looking at which risk matters the most. So we are prioritizing our risks. So in this case, you need to quickly determine which risk requires immediate attention and which can be monitored with minimal effort. That's mainly prioritizing our risks. But then when it comes to quantitative, it's not about prioritization really. It's mainly about measuring, about measurement of the risk impact, not ranking. So how much will this risk affect us? That's what we're looking at when we're talking of quantitative. So we're looking at how much the risk is going to affect the project. So in this case, we're not calculating that. We are mainly just ranking the risk. Which risk are we going to act on first? Which makes B our answer. And so qualitative is used when numerical time or when numerical time or cost impacts. Or there's Jose, he wants to say something. You can go ahead. Hello?
No, we cannot hear you clearly.
Yeah.
No, I think let's proceed as he tries to resolve the issue.
Okay. All right, that's okay. All right, so in this case, our answer is B. Then question 4. You're managing a software development project where both the requirements and the technology are unclear and continuously evolving. Stakeholders frequently disagree on what the final product should look like, and experimentation is required to make progress. Based on the Stacy matrix, how should this project be managed? Some people are saying B, okay, which means that we're okay. B is actually the answer, because remember the Stacy matrix. So when requirements in technology are unclear And stakeholder agreement is low use adaptive iterative method. So this is mainly like a complex project under the Stacy matrix. Okay, so this is the reason why the answers are not correct. Let's go to the fifth question. So a project has identified two identical risks. There's one thing that I want us to learn from here. So which risk should the project manager prioritize when we look at this one? The main tip, so that we don't waste a lot of time, is to use the EMV. Anyone? People are saying A, some are saying B. B, okay. C, okay. Okay. So remember, when you are using the EVM, we're mainly multiplying the probability multiplied by the impact. So we have got the impact here, which is 40,000, and the probability is 30%. So that makes it actually a quantitative. So we multiply 30% multiplied by this. So we're going to get 12,000 minus 12,000. Then here we're going to multiply 10% multiplied by minus 120. We're going to get 12,000. But in this case, they are all 12,000 minus 12,000 minus 12,000. But you know, the issue now is risk A has got the highest probability of happening. So if the probability of happening is high, even though the EVM is the same, we choose the one with the highest probability, which makes A our answer. So in this case, our A is actually our answer. So EVM is going to be probability multiplied by impact. They're equal, but PMP prioritizes the one most likely to occur first when EMVs are equal. Okay, so I want to rush to something else. Okay, you perform a sensitivity analysis on a project schedule. The tornado diagram shows that risk C is the longest bar, while all others are significantly shorter. What does this mean? Okay, I see everyone is putting C, which is actually good because the Stacy matrix is looking at the greatest impact. So it has got the greatest impact on the project. So risk C is the greatest impact on project objectives. Okay. Then I prepared a lot of questions. The project manager is managing a high visibility project that has regulatory oversight and strong executive interest. During risk identification, the team notes that the department head, we as final approval authority for key deliverables, has not been engaged since the project started. The team is concerned that decisions may be delayed or overturned later in the project. What should the project manager do to best mitigate this risk? Anyone? If I just get 3 people to answer this one, then I move on. I said B. Okay. B, invite the department head to attend all sprint review and daily meetings. This is tricky. Yeah. Okay, so the best answer here is basically B. Remember, when I talk of escalation, it's something that is outside the project manager's control. So if a risk is outside the project manager's control, then we escalate it. Let's look at the answers. Okay, so the risk exists because required decision authority is missing outside the project manager control. So A, reports do not create sponsorship or decision power. Documentation does not replace executive engagement. Okay. Then D, PMI prefers structured escalation, not operational over involvement. Okay. So let's look at quality. But then I've got these things here, just a quick scenario. So I've got scenario one. A government system is delivered on time and within budget, but citizens complain it is confusing and hard to use. Now, is it high quality? Is it low quality? Or someone cannot tell yet? The previous slide. Okay. Did you manage to screenshot it, Mr. Duncan? Okay, all right, so we go to the next one. So what do you think? Scenario one. Low quality. Yeah, so the government system is delivered on time and within budget, but citizens complain it is confusing and hard to use. Yeah, if you say low quality, then that's good because the citizens cannot use it. Scenario two, a luxury watch and cheap plastic watch both keep time accurately. Which one is higher quality? Okay. Oh, the plastic. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good. So I would say, anyone who wants to say anything on scenario two? Cannot tell. Okay. There's someone who said both, which is actually the correct answer because the only difference here is the grade. Oh, there's someone who raised an answer. The only difference here is they are just different. They've got different grades, but not quality. The measurement of quality is not determined by the grade. Someone can make. Yeah, you can say something. Jose. Oh, you want to ask something? Okay. All right. So let's go to scenario three. A developer adds extra features to impress the client because, like we want the client to be more impressed and find some extra things and say, wow, even though they were not requested. So is this a high quality? Jose is saying he's muted.
If you can raise your hand again, Jose, and I'll mute you again. Yeah. Should be
Yes,
able
hello,
to.
Paul. Can you hear me? Can you hear me
Yes,
now?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Yes, now I
great.
can hear you.
No, I just wanted to make a quick comment here. At least here you have a description. It says cheap, but gives you a specification of what type of watch it is, a plastic watch. But when it says luxury
Yes.
watch, luxury, you have no description. What makes it luxury, right? So it's a bit vague, if you see what I mean. To say both, we would say it could be luxurious because it's made of a very expensive and material like any expensive steel or something like that, and that would of course make
Okay.
it a high quality, right? And the plastic could be a cheap plastic. That's the thing.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else with anything to say? To comment, I mean.
So to be both is a bit one would be wondering, is it really the right approach or the right answer? Because one would at least fall for the luxury. The moment you hear luxury, is the same as talking about a luxury car. When you say luxury car, you know it's a car, you know, made with all sort of refined specifications, right?
Mhm.
And obviously, you say it's a high quality because of not just, and we say that the price pays for it. So
I think if I can just add something, I think the important thing with quality is to understand if it meets the requirements.
Yeah, very
That's
true.
the definition of quality. So if the requirement is to keep the time accurately, then obviously it's
Yes.
both, whether it's a fancy watch or a cheap plastic watch. If the requirement is to tell the time accurately, then that's irrelevant. So obviously we don't have all the details here of what defines the quality, you know. So I mean, that's something we'd set up initially in your quality plan. You know, whatever the product needs to keep the time accurately within blah blah blah, and if they both do it well, then they're both equally acceptable. So I think the luxury watch and the cheap plastic watch are just diversions, really.
That's very true. Because when we're talking of quality, we're looking at customer satisfaction. So if both of them they satisfy the customers, then when it comes to quality, they are the same quality. The only difference is they're just in different grades in this case. The other one is luxury, the other one is cheap, but the quality is actually the same. When we talk of quality, we also talk of defined requirements. Do they meet the requirements? And you know, like what also happens is when you are doing two projects, each project will be having its own customers. So there are customers that afford cheap uh, cheap watch, and there are others that afford luxury watch. But so they will all be having their own expectations. But so if you meet those expectations, which is mainly to keep time, then you've met the quality. So in this case, they actually both of them they actually have a good quality because they are meeting the requirement, which is mainly the basic requirement. Then for scenario 3, a developer adds extra features to impress the client, even though they were not requested. Is this high quality? Some people are saying no, yeah, which is actually true. Um, the truth is actually that when it comes to gold plating, it's actually equal to risk, not quality. If you start adding some features that were not supposed to be there, it's actually gold plating. It's actually risk, and you're likely going to be wasting, according to the Lean Six Sigma, you'll be wasting resources. Then we got to scenario 4. A product slightly misses one minor requirement, but customers love it. Is this high quality? Is there anyone who would like to say anything on scenario 4? Ebenezer. End result is customers. Okay. All right. So Jose would like to say something.
I think we can start with Ebenezer.
Ebenezer, okay.
Your mic was on. It's still on. Okay. We'll give, I think because Jose has spoken before, we can try them.
Okay.
There's,
There's 200.
there's
I see
Bem.
the
Okay.
name. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening from here. Thank you, Mercy, for the excellent information. Thank you, our facilitator for today. So for me, I would say it's a no, because for the part that customer like it failed the test of the specification. It did not meet the specification, so it is not quality.
Okay. Okay. There's someone else who wants to say something. Zakaria. Okay. There's a lot of raised hands.
Yeah, I'll just go one by one. There's Frederick. We'll allow a couple of them and then we can continue.
Then we can continue. That's okay.
Yeah, Frederick, you can unmute.
Yeah, thank you. So I would say if here love it means accepting the product, it is a high quality for me. Because, for example, if we say, for example, in Agile, for example, they used to say customer collaboration over contract negotiation, for example. And also, yes, that's what I can say for this one.
Okay. Yeah, that's all right.
Shall we
Think we
take
can
one more?
go. Yeah, we can take one more, then we move on.
Okay. I will just say the number 294.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please. You can unmute yourself. Okay. We'll give Olanyo a chance then. If Olanyo, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. So I think for me, I will look at the minor requirement that it has missed. We've not indicated which minor requirement is that, but it could be a risk that we are actually introducing by missing that particular requirement. So they may love it, but if that requirement, which will later serve as a platform where it can introduce even bigger issues, then the requirement has not been met. So for me, I would say it's a low quality. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. So now, as we move into the quality, let's look just like a high level what quality is. So quality is actually basically equal to conformance to requirements plus fitness for use. Okay, so mainly this means that the product must meet the stated and implied requirements. Okay, it must satisfy stakeholder expectations. It must comply with standards and regulations. It should support continuous improvement. We're going to look at continuous improvement later. So, but in this case, yes, it satisfied the customers, but it did not meet the stated and implied requirements. So it's actually low quality. And then from these scenarios, I'll just say quality is basically not being expensive, being fancy, being delivered fast, having extra features. It's actually gold plating and making everyone happy emotionally, which is actually the scenario 4. So we're just going to do just a quick run of quality. Can you see my screen? No, I don't think so. Let me
Yeah, we
share
could
the
see.
new.
You can share it again, Horace.
Yeah. Now can you see? Yeah, now I think it's feasible. All right, so now
Now we can see the next slide. We can see
the
both
next,
slides, the current and the next one.
you can see both. No, that's not supposed to be. Let me try to.
Yeah, now it should be fine.
Let me see the. trying to. Right now, it should be fine, yeah?
Yeah, it's fine now.
No, it's fine. All right, thank you. So now we're just going to debug the quality that we've been looking at. It's mainly like planning quality implies the outcomes and deliverables as well as processes. So let's just. So what is quality? Basically, the degree to which the set of inherent characters fulfill requirements. So it represents what the stakeholder expects from the project. In today's customer-focused business environment, end-user happiness is often critical in defining quality. So mainly, we're looking at the stated and implied quality needs. The inputs quality should be feasible, modifiable, and measurable. So we're also going to look at the product that we have produced and make sure that we can continuously improve on it. That's when we'll be looking at things like Kaizen, PDCA, etc. So we've got the cost of quality. So cost of quality is mainly into two. We've got the costs that we do to make sure that our product meets the expected quality or it does not fail. And then we've got money that we're going to spend if the project fails. So now, in this case, you will see that the preventive costs and the appraisal costs, it's actually cheaper, which is mainly to the left. It's actually cheaper to do training, document processes, etc., than to do rework, etc., and even losing business. So if you're going to be managing quality in your project, at least you need to make sure that the project doesn't fail more than reacting or more than just being reactive. We actually need to be very proactive. So when we're managing quality, we need to make sure that we also engage our stakeholders and make sure that we meet the stakeholder expectations. Now, the quality management plan, it's mainly a component of the project or program management plan that describes how applicable policies, procedures, and guidelines will be implemented to achieve the quality objective. Then we also have the quality policy, which is the basic principle that should govern the organization's actions as it implements its system for quality management. Now, the quality policy is usually on the organization level. Every organization, it's not on the project level, it's mainly on the organization level, because every organization needs to have a policy, like how they are going to, the plan or the specific play, what can I say? It is the high level principle, for example, about what quality means for the organization. So it can commit like to zero safety defects and continuous improvement. What does the good news mean for the organization? So that's mainly the quality policy. It's mainly high level. The organization can say 0% defects or 5% at least defects, etc. Then the quality management plan, we have got the organization quality management plan, and we also have the project quality management plan. And the project management plan, it is mainly the how-to part of managing quality and making sure that it aligns with the quality management plan for the organization. So the quality management plan, in this case, it is like an extension of the organization's quality management plan, because we're looking at this one as the project management plan. So it extends from the organization quality management plan, especially regarding testing and rollout implementation activity. So for example, physical products will require different details about expected quality that then will service or process improvement products. Then let's look at the compliance requirements. For the project to say we have met our quality standards, every project, no matter if it's adaptive or predictive, when it comes to compliance, it's non-negotiable. We need to make sure that we meet the compliance the compliance requirements, regardless of which project we are running. So they're mainly associated with the legal and regulatory standards. So these requirements must always be prioritized as mandatory or the highest. So we just need to make sure that we meet the compliance requirements. So projects must be compliant with internal and external standards, such as, just an example, appropriate government regulations. We've got the organizational policies. We have got the product and project quality requirement, the project risk, etc. So we just need to make sure, no matter which project, if you see a question in the exam asking about compliance, we have got to meet them. There is no shortcut. Then we've got standards and regulations. So basically, a standard is a document established by an authority, custom or general consent as a model, for example. Standards are typically voluntary guidelines or characteristics that have been approved by a recognized body or experts such as ISOs. So, for example, like a dictionary is also a standard. Like we have got a standard way of writing words, but if you don't write it that way, like someone might be taking notes here and they write change as a triangle. Yeah, they didn't meet the standard for the spelling of change, but it doesn't matter. It's just it's not, you cannot be sued for that because it's just you just didn't go with the agreed best practice or guidelines. So standards also, they are voluntary unless mandated by contract or law. Then we also have regulations. Regulations, basically, they are rules created by government or legal authorities, and regulations are mandatory. For example, we're talking of the tax laws, we talk of aviation safety rules. In projects, we can talk of things like environmental impact assessments required by the law, etc. Then we also have the de facto standards, which are mainly the practices that become popular through usage, not law. For example, like slang word, used by everyone, but not in the dictionary. You know, like the triangle that I was giving an example. We used to use it a lot in high school. Then we also have de jure standards, which are formally approved by authorities or written into law, officially recognized and enforced. Now, just as a summary of this one, I would say a standard is best practice, regulations just associate with law, de facto popular practice, and de jure officially approved. Now, let's skip this one for the sake of time. Quality metrics are identified and used during testing to ensure compliance. And we've got, these are important tools that professionals, and they include the metrics, tolerance levels, checklist templates, and other artifacts required by quality management plan, iterations, and retrospective. So retrospective, we're mainly talking of adaptive, where we, after an iteration, we sit, the people, they sit and then they are discussing what went wrong as a team, what do we need to improve on in the next iteration and stuff like that. The one that is mainly attended by the team members. Then we also have these quality methods for continuous improvement. We said for a product to meet quality, it also need to be able to meet the quality of continuous improvement. So we've got Six Sigma, which is mainly focusing on reducing waste. Okay, then we have got the Kaizen. The Kai is change and Zen is good. So change for better, and we're always improving. Then we also have the Plan, Do, Check, Act, where you plan, you do what you have planned, you check, you act, you come back again, you keep on planning, you check, you do. So it's like a cycle. It goes like in circles. Then for agile methods, we have got Scrum, Kanban, Crystal methods, etc. There are actually many, but these usually they are covered in other topics as well. So we'll not dive deep into them here, but they're actually covered in other topics. So let's just look at some of a few questions that we can have to cement in on quality. Let me just come to this slide. Okay. We're back again to this slide. So now let's look at this question number 7. A project team decides to reduce testing activities and inspections to save money. 3 months after production launch, several customers experience defects resulting in warranty repairs. Okay, 3 months after production launch, several customers experience defects resulting in warranty repairs, legal claims, and loss of repeat business. Which cost of quality category best describes the costs the organization is experiencing? D, okay. There's a lot of D's. There is B's, internal failure cost, okay. Anyone would like to say anything? There's D, okay. All right, so for the sake of time, I'll just there's A, all right. So the best here is there's Deborah. You can go ahead. All right. So is she talking? I can move on, yeah.
I'll unmute. I'll unmute.
You unmute, yeah. Oh,
okay.
okay.
One second.
Right.
Deborah, you can go. Both of you are unmuted. Whoever wants to go first.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going for D because I understand that external failure costs are costs that are incurred after the product has been released and on the market. So if there's any failure, then it requires warranty repair. So that's why I'm going for an external failure cost. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then the other one. All right. So we see that this, you see, like it's saying 3 months after production launch. Okay. Several customers experience defects resulting in warranty repairs, legal claims, and loss of repeat business. So these are actually after the launch, which means that our answer is actually D. So is there someone with a question? All right. So this costs okay after delivery to customers outside the organization as a result of defects found by customers. Then why the other options are wrong? Preventive costs are wrong. Those are costs spent to avoid defects like training and process setup. Okay. Then appraisal costs, these are testings and inspections activity done before delivery. Then internal cost is okay when defects are found before the product reaches the customer. So which makes our answer D. Okay, so we go to question number 8. A project team is preparing the organization's first consolidated year-end financial statement after a major ERP implementation. During the project, The team spent additional time creating audit trails, trained staff on regulatory reporting standards, performed multiple external reviews before submission. After release, regulators found no issue and no rework or penalties were required. Which of the following best describes the type of course the project was mainly investing in? Okay, I see a lot of C's, so let's. Okay, I think everyone has got the answer correct. So we'll say preventive costs. The identified list of what the team did is preventive and appraisal cost, which is actually C. All right, so we go to the other question, number 9. You're managing a project with a very tight deadline. The sponsor suggests relaxing some internal quality standards so the team can deliver fast. The customer agrees, and the product will still meet basic functionality. What should you do? Okay, I see some C's. Okay, this is almost the same as the one that we did before we started. We started looking at quality. So the answer is actually C. PMI requires that project quality must conform to organizational standards, policies, and regulations, regardless of schedule, pressure, or stakeholder requirements. So as you know, PMI really does not trade quality for speed. Quality is a constraint, not a preference. So let's move on. Question 10. A project team wants to reduce defects by following a structured method that includes define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Which method are they using? Yeah, this one, everyone is getting it right. Six Sigma. This is part of Six Sigma, actually. DCAIC is the core framework of Six Sigma. Okay, Kaizen, which is the change is good. It improves culture. PDCA improves processes. Six Sigma improves performance through data. Agile improves delivery through feedback. Let's look at the stakeholders. As I said when we started, I'm not going to give it that much time because it was also covered on Tuesday when I attended the webinar. But so let's look at these two scenarios. Scenario 1, you're building a hospital management system. Stakeholders, they include the hospital CEO, the nurses, IT department, government regulator, patients. Who is the most important stakeholder in this case? Someone said patients. Okay. Or someone is saying 1. Okay. All right. Before I answer scenario A, let's go to someone said, oh, okay. Let's go to scenario 2 before I answer scenario A. A powerful stakeholder says, I'm happy with the project so far. No need to keep me updated. Do you reduce communication? Anyone who would like to say why we shouldn't reduce the communication? All right. So I'll just move on. For the first scenario, what I can say is, you see, like as a project manager, with this information that we have, Okay. For scenario A, as a project manager with the scenario that we have, we cannot really definitely determine the most important stakeholder in this case until we have done like a structured decision tool, for example, like the Alliance model or another framework like Power Grid, interest grid to analyze each stakeholder systematically. So these tools, they really help to avoid the subjective judgments and ensure that your assessment as the project manager is based on objective criteria such as, for example, like the power, legitimacy, and agency, which is what is really covered in the Alliance model. So in this case, we cannot really know maybe, the power. Government regulators, they've got power. CEO has got power. So we can't really point out who the most important one is unless we actually do a proper assessment. Then for scenario 2, if you accept, Jose wants to say something.
Yes, hello, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I just got a point here, which is the following. Why are we building a hospital management system? Obviously, if you're building a hospital management system, it's because we need to improve on something, or we need to make sure that we manage the hospital the best as possible. We deliver with expectation, right? And where does the patient's roles come into? At the end of the day, we need to make sure that patients will be properly served, right? As stakeholders. In other words, it's like you have in your business and you have investors and you need to give return to those. So, I mean, I might be wrong, but it's just the way I'm trying to think of the whole scenario, right? Because if you're creating the management system, it's because you want things to function, to work properly. You want to manage it the best way possible. And to who are you creating it for? To make sure that apart from functioning properly, you have returns, you have profit. Right? So
yes. Yeah, that's actually good. It's a good way to look at it. But then now in this case, what I'm basically highlighting is, you see, the points that we have brought right now is the points that are going to be brought as we are going to be doing our stakeholder analysis. So before we agree that the patients are the most important or the CEO is the most important, whoever could be important, we need to sit maybe and do an analysis of stakeholders. And then now we can now categorize them after that. So in this case, the patients might be the most important one, but what if they are not? Because it's too subjective. So when it's too subjective, we can't come up with a conclusion. So that was where I was coming from, that at this point, we can't say this one. We can't point before we do our stakeholder analysis.
So then you say that one may expect questions like that, right? Where you may not be able to take a part or something like that. Did you see what I mean? We may expect questions like that in the exam.
No, this is just an introduction to the stakeholders topic.
Okay.
It was just an introduction to the stakeholder topic. So usually the exam will give you something that you can.
There's always an answer, one or the other, all of them, or both. Okay. All right. No, that's clear.
But in the exam, you can get a question that you need to click maybe to select 2 or even more answers.
More answers, yeah.
Yeah. Then now, since stakeholders were also covered, I'm just going to say something for the exam just to help everyone. When I did my exam for PMP, I noticed that as I was preparing, I noticed that the first 60 questions, they would take me a lot of time because I was mainly focusing on perfection. I wanted to have the best answers, but unfortunately, that was really taking my time. So right now, as I teach PMP, I also give this advice to the students that in the first 60 questions, you need to be careful of two things. You need to be careful of your time, and there's also accuracy, but be careful of your time. Don't forget that time is also a variable that can make you fail. So I usually advise maybe on something like a 70-80-80 rule. We have got 230 minutes in the exam. So if you put it like in the first 60 questions, you're going to try to use your 70 minutes with maybe an SPI of 0.9 or maybe SV of plus or minus 3 minutes, for example. Just in case you fail to meet the 70 mark, you might fail like on 72 or something. So the first 60 questions, try as much as possible to be as fast as you can, knowing that time can still cost you the exam. And sometimes if you don't know the answer in the first 60 seconds of reading the answer, you might never know it after 3 minutes. So just be comfortable with that and move to the next question. So what I do now, the first 60, if you do 70 minutes, 80 and 80, whatever minutes that spill, you can always cover them up. I mean, they will take the 8 from that 80 that you have set aside for. So I would say in the first 60 minutes, trust your instinct and know that your mind is still very active. You're still okay. So stop too much overthinking. Then establish your momentum. So the first 60 minutes, trust your instincts, establish the momentum. The second 60 minutes, focus on stability. And the last 60 minutes, survival mode. The reading speed really slows down because you're getting more and more tired. So you might need a little bit more minutes in that. So that's basically my quick exam advice. And then you also need to take the 10 minutes rest. So on the stakeholders, I'm just going to do a quick closing with some PowerPoints for the stakeholders. And if you've got any questions, you can ask during the, I can't see my slide for, I think it's here. Okay. Yeah. Can you see my, I think. Okay, so I'm just going to, I wanted to show you the alliance model and the other models that we can use to do our stakeholder analysis. Okay. So basically, these are the stakeholders that you can get in a project. We're not going to get into detail. Then for stakeholders, we have got the stakeholder register, stakeholder engagement plan, communication. That's what we're going to cover, just a few things. And like before you start your project, we have got the business case, the benefits management plan. These are business documents. And in the business case and the benefits management plan, you get to know some of the stakeholders. So you need to look at them for you to understand some of the stakeholders, because they are really they are implicitly actually mentioned in these documents. And then you need to know the relationship of the stakeholders to the project, the interest of the stakeholder to the project, the involvement, the influence to the project, the power to the project, etc. So now remember what we're saying now, you definitely need to do a stakeholder analysis before you know which stakeholder is more important. So you can do data gathering, brainstorming as a team. You sit down, you get to know who the most important stakeholder is. Like the last discussion that we're having, it will be like a brainstorming session where we look at the 5 stakeholders and then we try to find who is the most important stakeholders based on their interest, the rights, the knowledge to the project, etc. We look at their power, interest, etc. We put them in a grid and then we get to know how to deal with them, who is the most powerful, etc. So then we put them in a stakeholder register and then we put their preferences and everything. So this is an example of a stakeholder register. We've got the name of the stakeholder, just an example, like that hospital CEO, for example, is an internal stakeholder, is a sponsor, etc. So we get to know, we put them in a stakeholder register, and then we get to analyze each stakeholder. And then there's this thing, there is power of the stakeholder, there's interest of the stakeholder to the project, there is the influence of the stakeholder to the project. Like for example, you can see that maybe the CEO secretary doesn't have too much power on the project. Secretary, like to the CEO, doesn't have too much power to the project, but they can stop you from seeing the CEO. Or maybe if they are close to the CEO, they can influence the outcomes of the project. So influence is basically the informal ability to shape opinion. They can shape opinions of the CEO or behavior or decisions of the CEO. So they've got a high influence, but they've got low power. The CEO has got a lot of power, then interest at the level of concern about the project outcomes. Okay. So now we're going to put our stakeholders using the stakeholder mapping, where stakeholder, it's not only like a 2D graph, you can also have a 3D graph like this one, 3-dimension. So if the stakeholder has got too much power, you keep them satisfied. If they've got a lot of power and they are so interested in the project, you manage them closely, So this, the stakeholder mapping, you don't only use the power and interest, you can use the power and influence, you can use the impact and influence, but the outcome is almost close to the same. Okay. Then, so the stakeholders, they can either be upward, which is mainly the people that you report to. It could be that CEO, that example, or it could be the other project managers. It could be outward, for example, like the government, the one that was in there, or it could be sideways, the other project managers that could be working on the same projects with you. Then we've got the Salience model, the one that we spoke about, where we said it will be, there's 3 things: agency, legitimacy, and the power. So you see, for example, like if you're building a road in your village, the people or the citizens, they've got the legitimacy in the project too. Their proximity to the project is very high, and they are stakeholders by legitimacy. And the power, we spoke about it, like for example, like the CEO, and then the agency. How urgent do they want immediate action? How immediately do they want action to be done? Then, like as we spoke, you saw that grid. If the stakeholders have got power or they don't have power, we need the stakeholders to always have a positive perception on the project. But at the same time, there is a thing that sometimes can happen with too much or overly positive perception. So it needs to be managed in a certain, you need to manage the perceptions of the stakeholders basically. So if the perception is too high, for example, you're promising too much and they get disappointed, the disappointment might be very strong and it can actually affect the outcomes of the project. So you need to manage the stakeholder perceptions for them to stay in a certain level. So when it comes to the key stakeholders, for example, like if it's the CEO, for example, you need to make sure that you understand their preferences, etc., and everything for all the stakeholders. Upon like giving them communication, and then for if it's a large group, etc., if you want to get their information, you need to do things like questionnaires, surveys, etc., etc. Then we've got these two things that are actually close to our closing. We've got the stakeholder plan and the communication management plan. So the stakeholder plan, in short, it's mainly about relationship strategy. How are you going to manage the relationship with the stakeholders? Communication management plan is mainly about information delivery strategy. How are you going to be communicating to the stakeholders? Okay. Then, so I think here we're doing this meeting, we're doing it virtually using Teams. So that's the way that you can also be talking to the stakeholders. You can use electronic media, you can use physical, etc. But usually in the exam, if you see a question, you need to do the best one is the face-to-face if you need to be communicating to the stakeholders. Yeah, so now I'm just going to go for one question, maybe just two with the remaining time that we have. For stakeholders, and then we can close the session. Yep. Let's look at this question as part of, so you are managing a large project. During execution, several delays occur due to dependencies with external vendors. Whilst reviewing project documents, you notice that these vendors were mentioned only in the issue log and change log, but were never formally analyzed during project planning. What is the best action the project manager should take? There's someone who asked what was the answer to B. You don't reduce the communication. I see everyone is saying B here. Excellent. So I think we all have the answer. Every stakeholder is important and they need to be added to the stakeholder register. Let's look at it. Let me go to the next slide. Okay, so identify stakeholders, analyze their relationship to the project, update the stakeholder register. So we first need to formally recognize and analyze stakeholders, not just communicate or escalate. Then the last question for the session. A government regulator cannot change the project plan, but if they disapprove the final deliverable, the project could be shut down. The project manager is mapping the stakeholder using the impact influence grid. How should this stakeholder be correctly categorized? I see a lot of A's. Anyone who'd like to say something last before we close? We're left with just 1 minute. Okay. Zakaria Vunga, you can say then as the last person.
Hello, everyone. I think it's just straightforward. I see from the question says government regulator cannot change anything. That means has low influence on the
Yes,
project.
yes.
But the disapproval really makes the project go nowhere. So that impact was very high. That's why I said
Okay. All right. That's good. Actually, we agree on B. This case, they cannot directly change the project plan, which is low influence, can severely affect the project outcome, which is basically high impact. So influence means changing what the project does. Impact means ability to damage or benefit the project outcome. So yeah, I would like to thank everyone. And then before I give the time back to Mr. Nelson, when you're writing your exam, it is okay to take a few seconds, even less than 10 seconds on an exam, on an answer that you know. Don't waste time on an answer you know. Waste time on the answers, build for the answers that you don't know so that you can think properly. Thank you so much. And I would stop my screen now and give back the time to Mr. Nelson.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul. This has been very, very insightful. It felt like I was in a PMP, PMP training once again. Even when I did my PMP a couple of, not so long ago, let me not say a couple of years, just the other day.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, but thank you so much. This is very insightful, and I'm seeing a lot of messages on the chat just thanking you as well. Thank you so much. I know you're going to have more future sessions, so today was really good.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you for volunteering and just being able to deliver this session. And to the candidates as well, thank you for showing up. To those sitting for the exam tomorrow, the day after, we're wishing you success. Take some time to rest if you're doing the exam tomorrow. For those doing the exams the day after, try and do revisions, mock exams, post questions on the chat on the WhatsApp group. I've posted the link to the WhatsApp group on the chat. So once you click on that link, it will take you to the group, and then I'll approve you to join. Post any questions you have there, ask people for their comments and things like that. They'll be able to assist as well. But I would like to just as well say, if you'd like to follow up with Paul and maybe have a one-on-one session, or maybe just a review or a refresher course with him as well, feel free to do that. I don't know, Paul, if you have a page where with your details, if someone wants to join, to connect with you either on social media, or if they want to connect with you on LinkedIn or email, they want to send you an email, maybe if you can share that so that they can get to reach out to you as well.
All right.
Yeah, or if you don't have it, you can share it on the chat. The recording for today's session will be shared tomorrow, and we'll also share the schedule for next week. We have 2 sessions next week, which will be different topics. Will be other different topics. What we do is we run a cycle of 10 sessions, which is 5 weeks, to ensure that we cover the entire content. And this is very high level, because all of you have, the assumption is that you've already gone through an official trainer, or if you haven't, then this is probably new stuff for you. But if most of you have, then this is a refresher so that it encourages you to book for the exam. And like I said, when we started, please schedule your exam. It is better to work with a date in mind. There was a question that I just wanted to talk about quickly before we close, and someone asked if the PMBOK only can be used to prepare for the exam, and I said absolutely not, because the PMBOK guide, the exam is not based on the PMBOK guide. That's a misconception that we always try to discourage, because the PMP exam is based off the PMP exam content outline. That exam content outline will show you exactly the content that is going to be in the exam. The PMBOK is only used as a reference guide one of the reference guides for the PMP exam, and there are many other references that the PMP actually uses. So focus on what you the content that you went through in class, or if you did through Udemy, focus on that. If you can get access to an exam simulator, do a lot of mock and practice exams. I personally recommend PMP Study Hall, the PMI PMP Study Hall. I used it myself. In the WhatsApp group, you'll see me recommend that. You'll see others use that. It has really good questions, short ones, and even the long mock exams as well. But there are other simulators out there, and you'll see them posted. Work with whichever one you see it is okay. And then do as much practice as possible. Attend these sessions that we're having on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Interact with everyone on the chat, even on a WhatsApp group. So I wouldn't want to take so much time after this. The meeting, yeah, like I said, the invite to the next meeting on Tuesday and Thursday will be shared tomorrow on email and also on the WhatsApp group. So thank you, Paul, for today. We'll see you soon. And all the candidates as well, thank you. Have a good evening, good afternoon, where you are. Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. This is session number 2, Duncan. We just started this week. Yeah. So we had one on Tuesday, and we shared the recording. I'm going to share the recording again. We have past recordings that we've done before, even for last year, but we've all captured them, all of them on our YouTube. So let me just share that again. Okay. So I've shared the link which has all of them, even including the one on Tuesday.